I think here we're all so proud of Fashion Forward, so proud of having our own fashion event, and it's undoubtful that there is something going on in the Middle East for us, and there is this little seed of something big coming up. And for us, you represent the first supermodel of Muslim origins. And I think I would like to start with that, because it has been always some sort of, you've been the northern star of other Muslim models who came with you. I remember you and Yasmin Gauri.
Yeah, with a group of us, a very small group of us, a sort of sea change, which was so necessary. And it then developed later on into the 80s. And I have to say, really, with the advent of American Elle, we were embracing everything, every culture, every socio-economic background, mixing high street with high-end fashion. You know, nobody did it. In Vogue, they didn't. You know, you wore everything was designer, or it was all high street. No, you know, they came along and started throwing everything together and using girls who looked like they came from God knows where. Nobody knew. You couldn't tell. I mean, and that was the way the world, you know, was and is. And I felt like there was a great movement. Unfortunately, I felt like in the past 10 years we've been taking a real step back.
Yeah.
And that has really upset me. And it's something that slowly is being worked on again. And I think as the world just becomes more connected all together, we're now moving forward again. And it's becoming really, really important that we realise we're all strong together and not separate. So Fashion Forward is going to be important here in Dubai, because you're all important. We're all important and strong together. And I think the modelling profession is just going to reflect that, and it's beginning to happen again.
Well, actually, you've been attending quite a lot of shows yesterday, but have you noticed that there is no Arab model on the runway?
Do you know, it wasn't completely obvious to me, because, you know, you never know where anybody comes from, right? I suppose my father embraced it because he taught photography. So he had left Iran and he worked in an art department. So he was part of a creative idea, I suppose. He didn't like the idea at first, but of course, by the time my first paycheck came along, he suddenly realised, my God, you know, this is a real job. Yeah. And then he embraced all the things that he realised were part of his values. You know, he always advocated travel. He always said to me, travel is the greatest education you will ever get. And I took notice of that. Not his words, because that's what he actually did himself. And of course, my profession requires me to travel a great deal, and that's one of the absolute best things, really. Apart from working with different people all the time, and I find that very refreshing and very inspiring, but also to travel and to really get a taste of so many different cultures and countries.
When you started today, for big campaigns, let's say Lancôme, we're going to have a panel and they're going to decide which market you're going to be suitable for, and they're going to have a Chinese woman, a woman from Singapore, etc., and they're going to choose the model according to that. If she looks the more international looking, the more money they save. Was it like that when you started?
You know, I'm not sure people really did that. I mean, there obviously were people who did, but I think there was a little bit more of a gut feeling, a little bit more of an instinctive thing. People were quite happy to stand up on their own and take the flak for something if it went wrong. Whereas now, you know, there's a lot of committee. There's a lot of people who seem to want to make a decision, which means that it seems to be more difficult to make a decision sometimes, because there are so many people who have a voice. I assumed everybody always knew what they were getting with me when they booked me. I mean, it's quite blatantly obvious. I've been around a while too, quite a while. I did do a campaign not that long ago, and at the time, I remember thinking, there's something not quite right here. I'm doing it, it's working, but there's something I can feel, like a little chatter or something. And finished the job, everything fine, got straight on the phone to my agent, and I said, listen, it all went well, but I've got a feeling. I'm not sure, I have no idea. Nobody said anything to me, but there's something not quite right. And I had mentioned to her before this job, they'd never booked anybody with my colouring before. Blow me, 2 days later, she gets a call saying, could we make her eyes blue? Not even hazel or green, blue. Yeah. We're like, wow. I mean, we went through a lot of negotiation to do this job. You knew exactly what you were getting, and now you want to turn them blue. No, you can't.
Of course. And people know your face. I mean, it's so crazy. Do you know any of the new models that are, like you, dark? Do you recognize yourself in the new guard of models?
I'm such a fashion groupie junkie. I just love models. I love designers. I love the beauty, creativity photographers. So to me, I don't really see those things. I think other people see those connections, but I definitely don't, I just fall in love with people, and, whether I connect with them or whether I actually want to be them, I usually just want to be them, actually. There's no guide to how to make it. And I think anybody who thinks they've got the formula to success in life is so deluded. You're just in the right place at the right time. You got lucky and you worked hard. You may have a bit of talent. That's great. Mm-hmm. But, there's somebody with more talent somewhere. So there's no hard or fast rules to it. The only thing I've really, really learnt in this life, and particularly even in my world, but is kindness. It's something I couldn't stress more highly, is the ability to be kind and to have empathy is everything. Your manners and the way you treat people, eye contact, a smile, being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes for a second is going to change not just their day, but your day. Yeah. And all I know is that I'm in a business where you walk into a room and I'm surrounded by complete strangers. I don't have the luxury of getting to know people and having weeks and weeks together. So we're in a room, and within 15 minutes, I have to get to know people quite deeply. So I've got to be open, they've got to be open. That's quite a cathartic thing. You can't do that if you're guarded, you're shy, you're unsure. You've really got to open up. And that requires a kind of empathy and kindness. And I didn't realize, I was doing this purely selfishly for my own sake because it made my life easier. But of course you start to realize that every day you're getting pearls of wisdom. You're getting some joy and beauty from people, and that everybody's got it to give to you. And I think I've realized it's more important than anything in this business, because none of us just stand on our own. Mm-hmm. None of us do anything on our own. We're only as good as the people around us and the teams around us. So feeding off that energy, and becoming a unit together is unbelievably important, because at the end of that day, I may wave goodbye and never see them ever again. Chances are we will, because it's a bit of a small world. Yeah. But that is realistically what can happen. So those are my pearls of wisdom, and just keep your feet in good shape, because they're not going to last your forever. Feet. Yeah.
Interesting.
That's a very technical thing. Okay. The girls will know what I'm talking about. Actually, all girls will know what I'm talking about.
Your daughter is following on your footsteps. What kind of mistakes you don't want her to reproduce?
We haven't got all night, have we? Yeah. She started doing it. I mean, you have to have the prerequisites. It's not something you can sort of work towards. She just has the prerequisites. But I'm not worried about it. She will make mistakes. She'll make life mistakes. I'm not worried about her making mistakes in the business, because I think we all look after each other, and I don't really think of anything as a mistake. It's just experience. And as much as we like to think we learn from experiences, we don't. We're going to make them again and again. I mean, the world wouldn't be in the situation it is now if we all learned by our mistakes the first time. No.
Very true.
We're going to keep making them. I'm happy for her to make her mistakes. They'll be the making of her. So I'm not worried about it. There are no fashion mistakes. God, you're probably going to show some now, aren't you?
Imagine. I want to be a little bit nostalgic with you, because you represent
that requires me remembering things. It's another thing. It's all that hairspray. You just lose your mind.
So many Vogue covers. The first Elle American cover, actually. UK,
I did. Gosh, yeah.
And walking for Carl and I mean, all those amazing designers who you've been the muse to so many designers. Can you tell me who is still in your entourage today, and who been following you through that journey?
But, I was always a weird one because I was married so young and had kids. Nobody really had kids. Like, what are they? God. And so I had this other life that I was constantly rushing to get back to. But I felt incredibly lucky because, and certainly there are models today who engage in the same way. It wasn't just my era, but we would engage with the designers. We'd go to fittings and they were really interested because we weren't 16 years old. Yeah. We were older. We were the kind of girls who would walk in and buy the stuff. So they used to listen. We'd go in and Carl would be wonderful. At Chanel, they were amazing. I mean, it was such a big atelier, but you'd come in and they'd thought they'd picked an outfit for you, and then you'd go up to the board and go, but that one's so much more me, and we used to push it. But
FYI, impossible to do. You wear whatever the designer asks you to wear.
We used to manipulate, and Linda and I would whinge and moan a little bit.
Linda Evangelista.
We just, that one's so much, and that one's more Linda too. That one, we were a bit canny, we were a bit clever about how we did it, but we felt really engaged in it. Yeah. I mean, that was a very clever move on their part, because at the end of the day, we're going out there and we're selling it, but we're also putting the word out there. We're also the people who they wanted to be buying those outfits. And in those days, it was very difficult. Fashion is not where it is now. There's a lot of stuff that my God, I wouldn't have been seen dead in. It was real your mother or your grandmother stuff back in the 80s. Majority of the stuff I wore in Vogue, I would never have stepped out in. Whereas now it's timeless. Now it's young people wearing exactly the same people that people 20 years older would be wearing. It wasn't like that then. So we really engaged in the process quite a lot. I have to say, it was a very special time. I mean, the person who I will love forever is obviously Azzedine.
Yes.
I mean, he was just. They broke the
mold. Your father?
They broke the mold with that one. He was a little devil, He had such a naughty sense of humour. He used to love to tease people. He used to tease Janice Dickinson, to distraction, which is quite easy to do, by the way, because she's quite highly strung. But I know, it was an understatement, wasn't it? But Janice loves me. We had so much fun. But he really taught me so much about integrity. Yeah. And about standing by your beliefs. And, he pushed the boat, he pushed the fashion business as far as he could, but, the degree of difficulty with what he was doing and his taste level was something that became a benchmark for me. Yeah. I would always think, if I put something together, it's like, what would Azzedine think? Because for me, he was really incredible taste.
It seems like such a golden era for fashion where models were obviously superstars and having fun and a bunch of cool girls like hanging out, Linda and Naomi. And
I'm glad we sold it to you like that.
Well, you did. You actually did.
Well, we did. We were friends. Yeah. We
did. It was a small family. Are you lost today in this whole commercial revamp?
Well, it was always commercial. The shows were a particular time that we could get together. So yes, it was a much smaller family. There wasn't as quick a turnover. We were friends and we supported each other. And I feel sometimes a little bit sorry for the girls now in the shows. A lot of them are very young. It's sometimes at the shows, it's some of the first things they're doing, and that's scary. And you need your friends. You need to make alliances. Because it is difficult, it's lonely, it's exhausting. You need to have friends. And we all realised that early on. So we would the family just got bigger and bigger. Yeah. And then we'd end up calling each other going, are you going to Milan this season? No, Linda said she's not going to go. And Chrissy said she's not going to go. And if you're not going to go, look, we had to have 3 of us at least there. So we literally would call each other beforehand, like the little mafia. Well, if you're not going, I'm not going. It was ridiculous, but because it was hard. It was hard. You'd be homesick. You would be. I mean, the first time I ever did Milan, I didn't eat for about 3 days. By the time I was on my last legs, I remember grabbing Dalma, who was an older model and absolutely fabulous diva of a girl, and grabbing her, going, Dalma, when do we eat? I mean, because nobody really took care of you in those days. Yeah. Now, the girls are really taken care of.
They have nannies.
I mean, I was staying in a hotel that didn't even have room service. I mean, how on earth? Nobody thought about how she was going to eat. I was doing 8 or 9 shows a day like a lunatic. It was quite different, but it was commercial. We did have a commercial life, and it will always be commercial.
No, I mean, when I say commercial, well, I was reading an article. It was a fashion review. I think Mark Holgate from Vogue wrote it, and he mentioned that for the first time, this up-and-coming model sat on the front row for the first time. She was not walking. She never seen a show when she was not walking in it. And she sat down and she was like, oh, I thought I was exuding much more personality on
Yes.
the I feel like I'm looking at Roberts, like I feel when I walk, I have so much pizzazz, but nothing shows. And it's true that aside from, Jean-Paul Gaultier and the ready-to-wear stopping, Moschino, which is always a feast under Jeremy Scott, and also
there are a few shows that are shown. Yeah, they're spectacles.
But it's true that I remember some footage of you at Chanel, like walking down with Guellaty, like having fun.
Yeah, it was chaos.
This is what I'm talking about. The commercial,
but it was fun. You're absolutely right. I mean, I'm glad. I am so thankful I was part of that era. I mean, I can remember when I very first started doing shows, a few people thought of this clever idea of videoing it. Mm-hmm. It was like, ooh, video. Ooh. I mean, people didn't do it. So these poor editors. No wonder Grace draws brilliantly. She had to non-stop drawing. I mean, poor devil. I mean, Simon sometimes used to come and see the shows. There's a fine line with everything. Where are the boundaries? I mean, we're always pushing the boundaries. So there are always going to be grey area and difficult situations. I mean, you define yourself by how you deal with those.
Well, when you start with an industry that's premise is sex sales, then obviously you're going to slip here and there.
See, that's so funny. See, I don't think sex sells. I must be one of those weird people who, I used to have it all the time, I mean, I can remember photographers turning to me saying, oh, God, sexy, be more sexy. And I thought, that's it, that's the end of the day then. I better get my coat. Because to me, I just couldn't think of anything less sexy than trying to be sexy. Yeah. That's just the most unattractive thing on the planet. And I don't know whether that's a particularly English thing or a female thing. I mean, women, you know what we're like. I mean, you just, the boy that's paying you all the attention is just not attractive. You know, the guy being cool about things to me was always much more attractive. So I couldn't understand this whole concept of sex sells. I mean, maybe it's just that obvious idea of sex, to me, doesn't sell. To me, actually, it's a turn-off. Maybe I'm unusual. Okay.
No, you're not.
It's probably why I don't work as much as I used to.
You know what? I think you're postmodern. I think sex doesn't sell anymore. Definitely here in the Middle East, when you look at the women, and even if they're wearing a abaya, it's fake eyelashes and big lipstick, and there's still like this sort of area that they want to command, and they'll get over it, inshallah. But that's another question. There was this 14-year-old model who worked for, I don't know if you heard about that, for Prada. And definitely it's getting younger and younger.
Well, there are meant to be, most agents won't work with a girl, they won't. They'll take on a girl under 16, but she won't be working. Yeah,
except in Italy, where it can be.
Which, there have always been exceptions to this rule. Yeah, I think it's very difficult to kind of litigate this and make these kind of hard and fast rules. I think it's quite good that we do. But, I can remember working with a girl who was 12 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I was so shocked. I mean, she was about 6 foot. And I was just horrified. I'd been doing shows with her all season in Milan, turned to her, and somebody said her age, and I didn't know what to do about that. And where is your mother, for crying out loud? Who actually wasn't there with her.
Breakfast?
She was a great model, by the way. I mean, she was fabulous, and she turned out okay. But that could have been a car crash altogether. I don't agree with it. I have to say I don't. Mostly because And it may, because it could sound like sour grapes, from the old model sitting there, the vintage model. But
well, you look 12, so
I do honestly
doesn't
think
count.
that women get more beautiful the older they get. So a girl who looks great at 16 or 18 is just going to look better at 26. Much, much better.
But it's true for you.
They'll have something, they'll have lived, and then there's nothing more attractive than seeing a life on a face.
I have to say, I've been looking at your photos for all my life because I've always wanted to work in fashion. But you look much younger.
You mean they haven't put you off?
No. You look much younger than in the 80s. I mean, I don't know if I can disclose your age, but it's unbelievable. Like, this woman is...
It's been the end of this now.
Crazy.
I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it before
I
you.
just have been fired. But it's unbelievable.
Okay, it's the big 5-0. This month is the big 5-0.
Okay, and I'm 3'1", and I look older than her.
Oh no. Oh my God, darling. Have you been to Specsavers recently?
Well, see, I'm old. My eyes are. But you've shot this Speedo campaign with this body of yours. Like, I'm sorry, I have to ask. I know I've been asked this question a million times, but everyone wants to know, right? Like, what's your secret?
Oh my God, I can't believe you're asking me that question.
I know. I want to know because I feel you're lying. First of all, I feel all the models are lying to us. No, I don't like to work out. Pizzas, burgers. I woke up like this.
Do you know, I met girls like that. Honestly met girls like that who never worked out and they just sit there eating pizza all the time. I'm like, I just want to slap you so hard.
Oh, yeah.
If I looked at the pizza, my thighs would just go like that. I mean, it wasn't easy. I mean, this is thank you, Mum and Dad. This has absolutely nothing to do with me whatsoever. I mean, I think a good dose of those Persian genes. God bless. Yeah. So let's be honest about that. I've spent most of my life trying to sabotage this. Mm-hmm. I've had a good crack at that too, I can tell you. I mean, life's took for enjoying. This isn't a dress rehearsal. This is it. Heaven on earth. This is it right now. And to think that, I'm going to deny myself something I enjoy for the rest of my life for the sake of what? I don't know, being able to fit into one of those Azadine dresses that I had 25 years ago, which I shouldn't really be wearing. But that just, to me, that's not a life well lived. So, yes, I've exercised.
Okay, thank you.
I exercise too much, and then, of course, the back goes. You need to be careful with all of these things. They don't tell you when you start exercising, you're going to get injured, and then if you stop exercising, you're going to be left with all this flubber because you've made all this muscle, and, be careful what you wish for, It's like a dog. It's not just for Christmas, it's for life.
Yeah.
So, seriously, some of the people who look better than anything have never done anything because they've never had time to sort of damage themselves or get on that bandwagon. But it is difficult, and if I'm being honest about my time when I was working really hard, and this is actually quite difficult to be honest about this, because it's not something people like to talk about. But I travelled a great deal, and I probably wasn't as healthy as I could have been. I probably didn't eat enough. I wasn't as aware of nutrition as I should have been, and we are now, thankfully. But the repercussions of that can be quite scary. There were times when I really was surviving on the bare minimum. Mm-hmm. And, I was obviously fine because I was leaping around on stage, doing 2,000 balletic leaps a day in high heels, mm-hmm. which, by the way, is really not good for you. And I was fine, but there are repercussions. I mean, I met a model recently, absolutely gorgeous girl, and she's in her 30s now, moving into her late 30s, who has early onset osteoporosis. Mm. And there's no way back from that. And that was really a direct link of a form of malnutrition when she was younger. And that horrified me. And when I heard that story, I just thought, that's it. I went straight back to my agency and said, okay, you need to realize that a lot of these girls are not eating quite as much as they should. But whatever they eat, then it needs to be good. For God's sake, just plug it into them. But for that small amount, it has to be nutritious. You have to be aware of these things, because I'd never even thought about something like that. And that scared me.
Mm. Well,
Yeah, there
Lesson
you go.
for
That's
everyone.
there we go.
There's
I've
no free
opened my
lunch.
heart to you, but it is nobody. You know, you do all extraordinary things. When you're young, you push yourself to the limit because you can.
Yeah.
Pay the price for it later. Believe me.
I think it's time for some questions. Raise your hand if you do have questions.
Nobody ever has a question.
What?
Come on. Oh yeah.
Hi.
Hi there.
Hi.
So me and my friends, we're kind of at a place where we're reaching 40. And
My
You?
God, you? Oh Lord! I knew it would be soul destroying coming here. I just knew
Is this
it.
Cocoon, the movie?
my question is, like, I'm freaking out. And being in fashion, you know, everyone keeps getting younger. The models are getting younger, designers are getting younger. So, and you just disclosed that you're 50.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever get frightened of getting older? And how do you overcome
Well,
that?
you
if
know,
do?
I mean, number
There
one,
are only
you look
one
about 12, number one, so just don't tell anybody you're nearing 40. Number two, you've got to get to grips with that. I mean, that it's just not going to change. So there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, I go to work. I'm the oldest person in the studio. I mean, I worked with a photographer the other day who's 21. He's not even my daughter's age. You know, I mean, I have 2 daughters older than that. You know, yeah, I had to get over it because all I know is it's difficult growing older. There's no two ways. But anybody who says, "Oh, I'm fine with it," oh, yeah, bullshit. I'm sorry. It's. I mean, you are having issues. You know, you are quietly. You know, sometimes not quietly, but you are. It's difficult. I mean, it takes me 5 minutes to get out of bed. I mean, the body's just not working. I mean, trying to do my shoes up is hysterical. I mean, I did a show the other day, and the woman bent down to do my shoes up. Bless her heart, she wasn't just being like a normal dresser. She knew I couldn't get down there to do it. I have to let go of that, okay? You have to go, embrace it. Embrace it, it's funny, it's ridiculous. And the wonderful thing about the business we're in is that actually, as much as you think everybody's young, they're not.
Oh no.
They're not. And age is completely irrelevant. And I work with young photographers. I work with photographers I've worked with for 30 years. I've worked with photographers in their 80s. Everybody's relevant. Everybody. Just because you're young and you're new doesn't mean you're more relevant than anybody else. And I think that's what we're really that's the place we're coming to now, and it feels so good.
And you know what? To make you feel even better, the fashion industry is made of people that are primarily over 50. If you remove the models, okay, all the editors. I mean, do you want to be a model?
You can
still can be a model
You can
at
start
80.
in fashion at any age. You know, I went to the Condé Nast College of Fashion, to the new
Donna
college.
Karen started at 40.
Yeah, and there were people there in this college they really inspired me, actually, because you had a lot of young people who didn't know quite where they wanted to be, but they knew they loved fashion. There were people there who trained to be lawyers, people who'd done 10 or 15 years in another profession and really, really dug deep and thought, I'm not happy. I really love fashion. And had gone there, and they're starting off on that path. And all I could say to them is you're relevant. Everybody is, you know. And so at any time you can, you may think you have to start this young and you have to go through all of these things. You really don't. You've got something, you know, you have a voice, and it's worth listening to. If you have the passion, that's all that matters.
Fashion loves an outcast.
Yeah.
You can turn anything into chic. You
Yeah.
know, this is homeless chic. This is heroin chic. Like, hello, like craziness. So anything can be. I mean, find your niche and go for it.
Yeah. I think it's just, you know, it's all about telling stories, whether it's your own story. I mean, every day you tell a story, don't you? Whether you decide to put that grubby old grey T-shirt on or put, you know, that Balenciaga jacket on, you're telling a story. You're making a statement about how you feel. So I think you can make anything, and anything's a story that's worth telling.
Miss.
Hello.
Hi there.
Okay, so supermodel, wife, mother of 3, style icon, you're still in the business. How do you manage to juggle such seemingly contradictory lives and still be so great at it?
I suppose they are seemingly contradictory. I never really thought about that before. I juggle them really badly. I have absolutely no idea. I just used to be on kind of panic mode for a long time. So it would just be the panic of who's picking the kids up from school, that's sort of what life was like for a long time, I suppose. And you somehow muddle through. You make it. I've got a fantastic family. So having a wonderful husband, a great family, somehow you make it work, Yeah, you may feel like you've compromised. And there are times when I've probably felt like I've compromised more than I should. But then what's the problem with that, really? That's just your ego. That's just your pride. And once you can get over that and realize that actually, you've got a great life. You're lucky. I'm lucky I've got 3 healthy kids. I'm lucky I've got, a family and a life and a roof over my head. So, some of those compromises which you have to make, they're not so bad in the end. So somehow, it was a bit chaotic, I'll be honest.
Very well
I did forget the kids a few times at school, okay? Okay, I did. Okay. I did.
Hi, Yasmin.
Hello.
I have one question for you. Like any other industry, this industry also has its own stress, bad moments, good moments. And you have been quite open about your devil wear parada moments. So what would you suggest to newcomers who are entering the industry, how they cannot get intimidated by this, as I call it, parada wear, devil wears parada moments?
That's a good question. I'm really glad you brought that up, actually, because I was brought up in a family with really strong morals. I think this has had an impact, so manners were everything to me. That first greeting you make with somebody, not apologizing for being there, but really being open about saying hello, and helped me a lot and made me realize what was happening was I was dictating to people how to behave to me. That's what I was essentially doing. I didn't realize for years, but that's it. It takes a particular kind of person. I won't swear here, but okay, I will. It takes a particular kind of arsehole to not say hello and look you in the eye if you haven't pleasantly said hello and looked you in the eye. I've realized now that that's not the upbringing that maybe everybody has had. Consequently, I know girls who almost apologize for even walking in the room. And because of it, not because they're bad people who are there, but they react, they reciprocate in the same way. So you have to really, really have a confidence about you, a self-confidence. Don't apologize for yourself. You have to teach people how to treat you. It's a two-way street. It doesn't come out of nowhere, this kind of behavior. And there have been a couple of moments where I have had to, throw that stiletto down and just go, that's it, I'm out of here. And there have been. It has happened. I've been in a fitting where I just was very emotional, took one wrong word, and I just pulled it off and went, I love you, but I'm not doing your show this season. Okay, bye. Didn't have to get into an elevated state about it. But I'm horrified by stories I hear from other girls, big models. They're actually at the top of their game. And sometimes the way they're spoken to or treated has really made me think about why that's happened. Why did that person never treat me like that? What made me different? Because I'm not different. In fact, I was probably in less of a position than that particular girl right now. If I really dissect it, I'd take it back to my upbringing. And that kind of forthright manners. You wonder why manners are important. Yes, it's nice to be kind to people, but it's actually you're teaching people the way you want to be treated. And it works, is all I can say. This is not some secret to this. It's really straightforward and simple. You need to dictate how you want people to speak to you. Literally just speak to you. And then everything else follows. So, that's
as a woman.
As everybody, actually. It's not a demand. It's a God-given right. We should all be treated with compassion and dignity. But people can forget themselves in this business. We all know that, it does happen. Everybody's tired, they've had one too many espressos, it's about 11 o'clock at night, and there's another zip broken, and people can forget, just to be kind in that moment. And somebody needs to bring them back down. And maybe that's you, Maybe that's you in that one moment just going, do you know what, it's okay, and do you know that's fabulous, or just redirecting that energy. And as a model, that's what you've got to do all the time. You've got to redirect people's energy, because there is so much insecurity around you. You can't be insecure, and you can't allow your team to be insecure. So, if you want those beautiful pictures, and you want the hairdresser to do great hair, you need to make him secure. So it's all wheels and, I can never get sayings right. Was it wheels and roundabouts? It all comes around. So I think the long-winded answer to your question is that we dictate how we are treated. So we have to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
God, that was long-winded, wasn't it? Is anybody still awake?
The last question, Yasmin, is like, what do you think of Dubai, and what do you think of Fashion Forward?
Oh, blimey, big questions, aren't they?
Well, there's only one thing that you can think.
Well, no, listen, I love it. I mean, this place changes every time I come here. It's just extraordinary. And I think Dubai is it's unique. There's nowhere else like this in the world. It's a real melting pot of cultures and people, which is quite fabulous. And the more every time I come, the more I sort of fall in love with this idea. I think I was really flattered and honoured to be asked to come here, but I now realise it's actually really important, very inspiring to be at the beginning of something. And I don't mean that, in a derogatory way at all, because obviously, we all know where the seat of civilization is, and
Iran.
Exactly. I mean, the self-adornment and fashion shows were probably going on 2,000 years ago. Let's face it, we know where. Persepolis Fashion Week or something like that. But it feels like the time is right to embrace everybody now. And as I said, we're all stronger together. The business of creativity, because it's not just the business of fashion, that sounds so airy-fairy, it's really the business of creative energy is probably more important now than it ever has been. With so much turmoil in the world, the only way for a lot of people to really express themselves is through creativity. And so it's become more important, it's become business, and I think it's incredibly forward-thinking of the Dubai government to have this design district. I think is really exciting because, the business world is not about being just good at one thing. You've got to embrace everything. You've got to realize there's a big wide world out there and there's a lot that's so relevant. So I think it's very exciting and very timely. It's what the world needs right now. We need to get together and be stronger together and feed off each other's energy in a good way. And this is a positive thing.
Thank you. Thank you, Yasmin.
Oh, thank you.